Hi everyone and welcome to Drawing for All. I am Stepan Ayvazyan and in this video I will show you how to draw a mushroom. We will start by drawing a single mushroom step by step. Then I will show you how to use the same technique to draw different shapes of mushroom. And at the end of the tutorial I will show you how to create a small composition made up of several mushrooms. Start by lightly sketching the outer outline of the mushroom cap. Then draw where the cap connects the stem and indicate the top edge of the cap. Then sketch the stem, making it slightly wider towards the bottom. Erase any construction lines showing through the drawing and begin adding the outlines of the underside of the cap. Now use darker lines to trace the outlines of the cap. The outline doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. That will help your mushroom look more natural. At the same time, try to keep the overall shape symmetrical. Next, trace the outline of the stem the same way. The shape of the stem should become slightly wider near the bottom. Sketch the gills of the mushroom extending from the stem toward the edge of the cap. First, draw a few guidelines. Then, use them to place the gills in between. Lightly mark the separation between the light and shadow. Then begin adding hatching, starting with the darkest areas. The underside of the cap receives the least amount of light. If necessary, deepen the tone by adding a second layer of hatching. Make the core shadow darker. This is the area where the light meets the shadow. Begin adding tone to the cap, making one side slightly darker than the other. Then add tone to the stem the same way. First, cover it with an even layer of hatching. Then lightly mark the separation between the light and shadow, and fill the shadows with hatching. You can also deepen the core shadow. This small detail will make your mushroom drawing look more three-dimensional and realistic. Bring the drawing to the finished state. Adjust the tone and the balance of the light and shadow if necessary. Now let's see how to draw a mushroom with a different shape. Start the same way by sketching the outline of the cap. Then indicate the top edge. Mark the points where the cap connects to the stem and draw the stem itself. You can give it a different curve. Trace the outline of the cap, then darken the outline of the stem. Add shadows to the bottom surface of the cap. Separate the light from the shadow, gradually hatch the darker areas, and add more tone wherever you feel it needed. The same method can be used to draw a mushroom of almost any shape. The outer outline of the cap and stem may vary a lot, but the sequence of steps stay the same. First, sketch the cap, then draw the stem. Trace and darken the outlines of both parts of the mushroom with darker lines. Erase all unnecessary construction lines. Add the gills if they are visible from this angle, and start drawing the shadows. Mark the separation between the light and shadow, then fill the shadow area with dark and dense hatching, including the underside of the cap. Next, add tone to the cap and stem. Try to work on every part evenly, switching back and forth between different areas. A top view is just as easy to draw. First, sketch the cap as an oval, then draw the stem underneath and add the ring if needed. You can also add spots to the top of the cap, spacing them unevenly across the surface. Again, mark the separation between the light and shadow. Determine the light source and fill the shadow areas with even hatching. Then add an even layer of tone to the cap and stem. You can choose a more complex mushroom shape with less regular outline and more unusual angle. Even then, the sequence of steps stay the same. Sketch the cap, then the stem, and add the ring if needed. Gradually refine the outlines while working evenly across the different parts of the mushroom, erasing the unnecessary construction lines. Add the gills by starting with the guidelines on opposite sides. Then gradually fill the space between them. Determine the light source and begin shading the opposite side. Start with the darkest areas and gradually work towards the lighter ones. This is how you draw a single mushroom. A composition with several mushrooms is drawn in exactly the same way. This time, begin by sketching all of the caps first, then add the stems. Slightly overlapping one mushroom with another will help create a stronger sense of depth. Next, refine the outlines of the mushrooms, their caps, and their stems. You can make the mushroom closest to the viewer slightly darker and more contrasted to make the drawing look more three-dimensional. Erase all the construction lines and add grass around the bottom of the composition. The blades of the grass shouldn't all point in the same direction. They should vary slightly in direction and height. Then begin adding details and shadows. That's it. Now you know how to draw a mushroom in several different ways. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to subscribe and check out the full tutorial on the website.